Have you ever wondered why, no matter how nice, loyal, or available you are, women still lose interest? It's not because you're not enough, it's because you keep doing the one thing that silently kills attraction every time. Today, we're going to talk about the truth most men avoid, the real reason no woman wants you when you do this. Number one, you seek validation instead of commanding respect. Most men don't realize how destructive validation-seeking behavior is until they've lost a woman who once admired them. It's subtle at first. You think you're just showing interest, being attentive, proving your worth. But what you're really doing is unconsciously communicating that her approval means more than your own self-respect. And that is the moment attraction starts to fade. Women don't fall for men who need them to feel enough. They fall for men who already are enough, with or without them. When you seek validation, you hand over emotional power. You start doing things not because they feel right to you, but because you hope they'll make her like you more. You text to get a response, you compliment to get one back, you agree even when you don't mean it. Everything you do becomes a performance to be accepted rather than an expression of who you are. That constant need for approval makes you predictable, and predictability makes you uninteresting. The woman feels it. She feels your energy chasing hers, and she instinctively pulls away, not because she's cruel, but because her nature is wired to test strength. And strength doesn't chase validation, it commands respect. Respect isn't demanded through dominance or control. It's earned through emotional discipline, the ability to stay centered even when things don't go your way. When a man values himself deeply, he doesn't crumble when a woman doesn't text back or when she seems distant. He doesn't rush to fix things just to feel safe again. He allows her to have her space, her mood, her silence, without making it about his worth. That calm confidence is what separates a man she tolerates from a man she desires. Because for a woman, safety isn't about protection alone. It's about emotional steadiness. If you're emotionally dependent on her reactions, she can't relax around you. She feels she has to lead the dynamic, and that kills attraction instantly. Validation-seeking men often come from a place of emotional emptiness. Maybe they were never taught that self-respect is earned through discipline, purpose, and consistency. Maybe they grew up thinking that love must be earned through approval, so they approach women the same way, trying to impress, to prove, to be chosen. But attraction doesn't work that way. The more you try to prove your worth, the less worthy you appear. It's like trying to convince someone you're confident. The act of convincing shows you're not. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't seek to be noticed, it simply exists. The irony is that the more you chase validation, the more you repel the very thing you want, genuine connection. Women are drawn to men who have emotional independence, men who validate themselves through their actions, not someone's opinion. They sense when a man moves through life with purpose, when he can give love without needing it in return to feel valuable. That energy is rare, and that's what women are magnetically attracted to. The truth is, validation seeking isn't about women at all. It's about you not trusting your own value. It's about the fear of being unseen, unheard, unloved unless someone else confirms your worth. You start to crave that confirmation like oxygen. And every time you get it, it fades too quickly, leaving you chasing more. It becomes a cycle of insecurity disguised as affection. And the moment she realizes your sense of self depends on her approval, she subconsciously loses respect, because a woman cannot admire a man who looks to her to define who he is. Number two, you over-explain and try to convince her. One of the biggest mistakes men make in relationships is believing that logic, explanations, and constant reassurance can change how a woman feels about them. When she starts pulling away, you start talking more. When she questions your intentions, you try to convince her that you're genuine. When she loses interest, you try harder to explain why she should stay. But attraction isn't built through convincing. It's built through energy, presence, and consistency. The moment you start over-explaining, you step into the role of the pleaser, not the man she respects. Because what you're really communicating is, please see my value. And nothing turns a woman off faster than a man who needs to justify his worth. Over-explaining always comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of rejection, fear of losing her approval. You start explaining yourself not because you owe her clarity, but because you want to control how she perceives you. You want her to see you as the good guy, the one who means well, the one who doesn't deserve to be ignored. But women don't fall for explanations, they fall for the emotional tone behind your actions. When you talk too much trying to fix her perception, you reveal insecurity. You show that you care more about being liked than being understood. And women can sense that emotional imbalance. She might not articulate it, but deep down, she feels it. The lack of inner strength, the need for validation hiding behind all those words. The truth is, real confidence doesn't explain. It allows people to interpret you however they want. A confident man knows who he is. He doesn't chase approval because he's not trying to be perfect in anyone's eyes. He lets his actions speak. He can listen to her doubts without rushing to justify himself. He can stay calm when she tests him because he doesn't feel the need to control the narrative. That calm energy communicates power. It tells her that your world doesn't depend on her opinion of you, and paradoxically, that's when respect begins to grow. When you stop convincing and start embodying. The problem with over-explaining is that it makes you predictable. Every time she questions you, you react. Every time she withdraws, you try to talk her back. You become emotionally transparent, which means she knows exactly how to trigger you. She can control the dynamic simply by pulling away, knowing you'll rush in to restore her approval. That's not attraction, that's emotional dependence. And once a woman realizes she can emotionally manipulate you just by changing her tone or withholding affection, she loses respect. Because deep down, women want to feel your emotional strength. They want to feel that no matter what they say, you remain grounded. When you over-explain, you also take away your mystery. You reveal too much of your emotional process, and that kills curiosity. Women are drawn to men they can't fully figure out, not because they like games, but because mystery signals confidence. A man who doesn't explain everything leaves space for her to think, to wonder, to feel drawn in. But when you pour everything out, your thoughts, your intentions, your fears, you eliminate that emotional tension. You become an open book with no depth left to explore. Attraction lives in the unknown, and when you remove that, you remove desire. There's also a deeper psychological layer to this. When you try to convince a woman, you're indirectly putting her in a position of authority. You're asking for her judgment, her approval, her permission to be accepted. And no woman can admire a man she feels above. She might empathize with him, she might even like him, but she won't feel that spark of respect that fuels attraction. The dynamic shifts from man to woman to boy to mother, and once that happens, it's almost impossible to reverse. Number 3, you're too available, too predictable. When you become too available, you slowly lose your edge in a woman's mind. At first, she might appreciate your attention and consistency, but over time, that constant availability begins to dull the attraction. Women are drawn to men who have a sense of mystery, men who seem to live in their own world. A world she wants to be invited into but can't easily access. When you're always there, always answering right away, always free when she calls, you remove that sense of wonder. You become predictable, and predictability is the death of desire. It makes her feel like she has you completely figured out. And once a woman feels that, the emotional tension that fuels attraction disappears. Being available all the time sends a silent message that you have nothing more important going on in your life than her. It shows that she's the center of your world, and while that might sound romantic in theory, in reality, it makes her feel like your life lacks direction. A man who's always ready to drop everything for her communicates that he doesn't have boundaries, purpose, or priorities outside of her attention. Women respect men who have structure, who value their time, who live with intention. When your energy is scattered and always orbiting around her availability, you begin to look less like a leader and more like a follower of her moods. Too much predictability also removes the emotional polarity between a man and a woman. Attraction thrives on uncertainty, not the toxic kind that plays games, but the natural uncertainty that comes from a man being deeply invested in his life. When she doesn't know what you're doing every second, when she senses that you're busy with goals, passions, and people that matter to you, she feels a subtle pull. She starts to think about you. She starts to wonder what you're up to, who you're meeting, what drives you. That curiosity keeps her engaged emotionally. But when you make yourself too easy to access, you rob her of that emotional investment. She doesn't get to miss you because you never give her space to. Men often confuse availability with care. They believe that being constantly present and responsive is proof of loyalty and affection. But emotional availability and physical accessibility are not the same thing. You can be emotionally reliable while still maintaining your individuality. The problem starts when your time, your energy, and your attention become completely controlled by her needs. That's when she starts testing you, not to play games, but to see if there's any backbone beneath the surface. If every time she pulls away, you chase harder, if every time she gets quiet, you flood her with messages, you show her that she runs the dynamic. And the truth is, no woman can stay attracted to a man she feels she can control. Predictability kills excitement because it makes the relationship feel one-dimensional. She knows you'll text in the morning, she knows you'll reply instantly, she knows you'll cancel plans if she suddenly wants to see you. There's no tension left, no rhythm of distance and closeness, no moments that make her feel that spark of longing. A man who values his time and moves with purpose doesn't have to play games to create that tension. His life naturally does it for him. His goals, his growth, his personal space, they all remind her that she's with a man who doesn't need her to fill a void, and that independence makes her feel safe, not because he's emotionally distant, but because he's emotionally grounded. When you become too predictable, she stops trying. Human nature always values what's earned, not what's guaranteed. If she knows you'll always be available no matter what, she doesn't feel the need to invest emotionally. But if she senses that you have standards, that your time must be earned, that your attention is valuable, she steps up. Women naturally calibrate their energy to match the man's emotional level. When your life has momentum, she feels inspired to align with that energy. But when you have nothing happening outside of her, she feels pressure instead of attraction. Number 4, you don't set emotional boundaries. When you don't set emotional boundaries, you slowly lose control of how you're treated in a relationship. You start tolerating things that go against your values, not because you agree with them, but because you're afraid of losing her. You stop speaking up when something feels wrong because you don't want to create tension. You keep giving second chances even when your gut tells you she doesn't respect you. This lack of emotional boundaries doesn't just make you seem weak, it makes you emotionally unsafe to be around. Because a man who can't protect his own emotional space can't protect the relationship either. Boundaries aren't about control or distance. They're about self-respect. And without them, love turns into emotional chaos. When you allow a woman to cross emotional boundaries repeatedly, you teach her that your feelings are negotiable. Every time she disrespects you and you stay silent, every time you're treated unfairly and you justify it, you're communicating that you'll tolerate anything to keep her happy. That's not love. That's self-abandonment disguised as loyalty, and women can feel it. They might not say it outright, but deep down, they lose respect for you. Because a woman doesn't want a man who tolerates everything. She wants a man who knows where to draw the line. She wants to feel your strength, not through aggression, but through quiet certainty. The kind that says, I care about you, but I will not lose myself for you. Men who lack boundaries often confuse emotional connection with emotional dependence. They think being vulnerable means letting a woman's moods dictate their peace. They take on her emotional baggage, her stress, her problems, until they're drained and resentful. They believe that absorbing her pain is what love means. But true emotional maturity is not about taking responsibility for someone else's emotions. It's about being present without losing yourself in their storm. When you're grounded, you can listen without absorbing, you can care without losing control, and you can love without losing self-respect. That's the difference between emotional strength and emotional codependency. Boundaries are what create polarity in a relationship. They define where you end and where she begins. Without them, everything blends together. Her problems become yours, her moods become your reality, and her approval becomes your source of peace. That's when attraction starts to die. Because deep down, a woman doesn't want to feel like she's your emotional anchor. She wants to feel your independence, your ability to hold your ground no matter how emotional things get. If she can shake your world with silence or manipulate your mood with attitude, she stops feeling safe around you. Emotional safety for a woman comes from knowing that her man won't crumble just because she's having a bad day. Setting emotional boundaries also means having the courage to walk away when respect fades. It's knowing that love without self-respect is just attachment. The reason most men stay in unhealthy dynamics is because they're afraid of being alone. They'd rather be disrespected than be single. But that fear of loss makes you easier to manipulate. The moment a woman senses that you'll do anything to keep her, she tests you harder. Not because she enjoys it, but because she wants to know if there's any strength behind your softness. A man who can't enforce his limits ends up resenting her for behavior he quietly allowed. Number 5, you lack purpose and direction. When a man lacks purpose and direction, everything about him starts to feel uncertain. His energy becomes scattered, his words lose conviction, and his presence starts to feel empty. You can sense it in how he moves, how he talks, how easily he gets distracted by things that don't matter. A man without a clear sense of direction doesn't just lose his focus, he loses his edge. And women can feel that immediately, because deep down, feminine energy is drawn to masculine energy that knows where it's going. A man with vision creates emotional safety, not by what he says, but by the steady force he carries. When that force is missing, everything else starts to crumble, including attraction. Purpose is not just about career or money. It's about having a reason to wake up and push forward every day. It's about knowing what kind of man you're becoming and what kind of life you're building. Without that inner compass, you end up drifting from one situation to another, chasing comfort instead of growth, attention instead of progress. And in relationships, that energy shows. You become reactive instead of grounded, passive instead of intentional. You start seeking meaning through her love, her validation, her attention, instead of through your own mission. But when a man makes a woman his purpose, he unconsciously puts pressure on her to fill the void that only purpose can. That's when she starts to pull away, not because she doesn't care, but because no woman wants to be responsible for giving a man his sense of meaning. Women are naturally drawn to men who are busy building something bigger than the relationship itself. It's not about neglecting her, it's about having a life that inspires her. When you have direction, your energy feels different. You don't need to chase because you're already in motion. You're focused, grounded, and selective about where your attention goes. That's the kind of energy that commands respect. It tells her that even if she leaves, you'll still keep moving. That emotional independence is magnetic. It's what separates a man who's wanted from a man who's needed. Because a man who's needed feels heavy. His energy asks to be saved. A man with purpose feels light. His energy inspires trust. When you don't have direction, your emotions start to control you. You get easily discouraged, easily distracted, easily thrown off by small setbacks. You become reactive to life instead of proactive. And women sense that instability. They can't lean into a man who doesn't know where he's going. It's not about material success. It's about having a backbone, a mission, a vision that guides your choices. Even if you're not there yet, even if you're still figuring things out, what matters is that you're on a path. There's a difference between being lost and being in the process of building something. One feels empty, the other feels alive. A man with no purpose also tends to overinvest emotionally in relationships. He makes the woman his project. He obsesses over the dynamic, overanalyzes her every move, and starts treating her mood as his measure of success. That's a dangerous place to be, because now your emotional state depends on someone else's behavior, and the moment she feels that, she starts to lose attraction. Women aren't drawn to men who revolve around them. They're drawn to men who revolve around something greater. That's what makes them feel safe and inspired, the sense that you're not just living for the day, but for something meaningful that even she can respect. Number 6, you mirror her mood. Instead of leading the energy, when you mirror a woman's mood instead of leading the energy, you give away the very thing that makes you masculine, emotional grounding. Most men don't even realize they're doing it. When she's warm and affectionate, they open up completely. When she pulls away or acts distant, they mirror that distance. When she's angry, they get defensive or cold. When she's sad, they collapse emotionally and take on her energy. But real strength isn't about matching her emotions. It's about stabilizing them. A woman doesn't want you to mirror her mood. She wants to feel your steadiness when she loses hers. That steadiness is what builds trust and attraction. The moment you start reacting to her emotions instead of holding your own, you stop leading and start following. Masculine energy is meant to bring direction, clarity, and calmness into chaos. Feminine energy moves like water, unpredictable, emotional, intuitive, sometimes contradictory. That's not a flaw, that's her nature. But when a man doesn't understand this polarity, he takes her emotional shifts personally. If she's upset, he assumes he's done something wrong. If she's quiet, he starts overthinking. If she's distant, he tries harder to fix it. All of this comes from a reactive mindset, not a grounded one. You start to dance around her emotions, adjusting yourself based on her current state, hoping to keep things peaceful. But in trying to please her emotions, you lose your center. And once your emotional center is gone, your masculine frame collapses. A man who mirrors her mood becomes emotionally unstable without realizing it. He's happy when she's happy and frustrated when she's frustrated. His peace depends on her energy. That kind of dependency kills attraction because it makes her feel responsible for how you feel. She starts to sense that your emotional world is too easily influenced, that she has too much control over your state of mind. And when a woman feels she can control your emotions, she loses respect. Respect is tied to emotional safety. And emotional safety only exists when she knows you won't crumble under pressure. She might test you with moods, silence, or emotional waves, not to manipulate, but to see if you can handle them without losing composure. When you react instead of lead, you fail that test every time. Leading the energy doesn't mean ignoring her feelings or being emotionally cold. It means being the emotional anchor that keeps the relationship steady when the waves hit. When she's moody, you don't lecture her or retreat. You stay grounded, patient, calm. You don't feed into the chaos, you absorb it, transform it. Your energy tells her, "It's okay, we're fine." That silent strength brings her back into alignment faster than any explanation or argument ever could. Because women feel energy more than they hear words. If your energy stays calm and strong, she starts to relax. If your energy mirrors her anxiety, she feels even more lost. The ability to lead energy comes from emotional maturity. It's the discipline to not take her behavior personally. It's understanding that her emotions are temporary, but your reaction defines the tone of the relationship. Most men want harmony, but they chase it through control. They try to change her mood instead of mastering their own. True harmony comes when your emotional state remains steady no matter what she's feeling. That's when she starts to feel safe in your presence. She knows she can express without breaking you. She knows she can be vulnerable without destabilizing the connection. That's the essence of masculine leadership. Emotional consistency. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how you carry yourself. Not how much you do for her, not how much you explain, and not how hard you try to please. The kind of man women are drawn to isn't the one who chases approval or bends to fit someone else's emotions. It's the one who leads with calm, clarity, and purpose. If you want real respect, stop begging for it. Build it through your actions, your focus, and your boundaries. When you learn to validate yourself, protect your energy, and stay grounded no matter who walks in or out of your life, that's when everything changes. Because true attraction doesn't come from chasing love. It comes from becoming someone who doesn't lose himself trying to earn it.